What's going on, everyone? It's Bales, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Captains video ahead of round 19. So we had a pretty good week in terms of captains last week. We were second in the experts last week with a few big scores. We had Dunkley at 106, Goulden at second with 151, Tom Green 123, Merritt fourth with 91, and Lockie Whitfield at 5 with 132. Obviously, my order slightly shifted with Whitfield going from 2 to 5, and then obviously just Goulden, Green, and Merritt moving up one spot. Just when I heard about the weather there, I was just a little bit nervous about Whitfield with his scoring, but he put out a good score, and he's still my top 5. So if you had him or a Goulden or a Tom Green, you'd be pretty happy with your captain last week. But let's pick some more captains in round 19, because top couple was hard to split between the top couple. So let's get stuck into it. But as always, before we do, if you are enjoying the content around here and enjoying the captains videos, which obviously the newer videos on the channel, then make sure you smash a big thumbs up on the video. That would be very much appreciated. Make sure you also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We need 2,600 subscribers, so if you can help us reach that goal, that would be very much appreciated, because obviously we're trying to get to 3K. That's the next big goal. So let's get stuck into the top 5 captains for the week. So coming in at number 1, I have got Tim English. And the reason I got Tim English at number 1 is because what Geelong have been allowing to rucks over the past, well, really since probably like round 9 or 10. So let me just take you back the last couple of weeks. So last week, Collingwood played Geelong. Dust Cameron, 147, had 58 hitouts. Go to round 17, where Geelong played Hawthorn. Lloyd Meek had 94, but with that, he had 47 hitouts. Go to the previous round, where Geelong played, who did they play? They played the Bombers, and you look at the two guys that won the hitouts there. Goldie had 33 hitouts, and Draper had 24, 66 and 49 with their scores. Obviously, not great when they're together. Then against Carlton, De Koning top scored for the game with the 131 with 34 hitouts, and obviously we know that he's not necessarily like dominant ruckman there. So they're just the scores from the buys, but they've been giving up big scores to rucks and hitouts for the better part of, well, yeah, as I said, since round 8 or 9. Tim English is coming up, obviously, up against them, and I just think that English is that guy that when he gets over 30 hitouts, he goes big, and he has big scores. Every game this year where he's had at least 30 hitouts or more, his scores were, we got a 93 against Geelong with 38 hitouts in Gatherand. Then he went 126 against Hawthorn, 109 against Richmond. He only got an 80 against the Giants, but that was a wet game. Collingwood, he had 50 hitouts. He got a 116. Okay, so maybe he doesn't go massive. And then Carlton last week got a 111. So maybe he doesn't go massive with the hitouts. But Geelong, just a great matchup. Obviously, I mentioned some of those big scores there. So for me, English has been in good form. 3 of his last 4 have been over 110. So I've got him at number 1. And I think he can pop a big ceiling score. His top score for the year was a 141 against Freo. And then his only other score over 130 was against Port 2 weeks ago. So he capitalised on that good matchup, and I think he'll do it again. Coming in at number 2, it was hard to split between the two rucks this week. I've got Rowan Marshall sitting at number 2. Only scored the 96 when he played West Coast earlier in the season. Gave away 6 free kicks that day, so, and I know a couple of them were from tackles, so that could have been a 120, obviously, if you add the free kicks back and everything like that. And I know he coulda, woulda, shoulda. But, again, he's had the biggest ceiling, arguably, of any player in the comp this year. Scored a 150 against the Crows last week. Obviously, then he had the back-to-back 164, 171 early in the year as well. And then the back-to-back 136 and 138 in round 4 and 5. So he's got the ceiling. He's got 500s in a row since those 2 poor weeks where he had Melbourne and West Coast back-to-back. The game against West Coast, as I said, only had the 4 marks and 2 tackles, had 41 hitouts. And I know for a fact with him, when he has over 30 hitouts, he goes big. So he got a 118 against Geelong. Then he had against Port. That was his one injured game. He had 31 hitouts and only got the 73, but he was injured from the first quarter onwards. Then in round 9 and 10, he had over 30 hitouts. That was a 164 and 171. Against the West Coast, he had 41 hitouts. He got the 96. And then last week, he had 48 hitouts and he got the 150. So more often than not, when he has over 30, he does go big. And when I mean big, he goes very big. So for me, West Coast, great matchup. West Coast, obviously, have got the interim coach now as well, heading over to Marvel. This could be a game where St Kilda, poor game last week, look to respond back home. I think Marshall will be big this week. Coming in at number 3 is the Bont, Marcus Bontempelli. And he would have been higher if I wasn't worried slightly about the tags. So Geelong have been obviously tagging, and this order could shuffle on Friday. I probably should have mentioned it when I was speaking about English, but if Reece Stanley gets named for Geelong, that I'd be less confident in English, but probably a little bit less confident in Bont as well. So if Stanley's named, it would obviously mean harder matchup for English, but then also Bont is likely to cop the Blitzarves tag, or I don't know if they've got O'Connor back or anything like that, but maybe he comes in. Bont could get tagged here. He did go 149 against Geelong, though, earlier this year. So that's why he's so high up at 3, because if he doesn't get a tag, Geelong is such a good matchup for midfielders when they don't get tagged. I think he'll go well. Obviously, as I said, the flag is that I think he could cop some attention. But then again, he didn't in round 4. So if he doesn't, he could go big. But this sort of could slightly shift. If Stanley got named, then English would probably fall down to maybe 4 or 5, and Marshall would be my number 1, and I'd probably have Bont at 2, to be fair, I think. So, but we will go for the next couple here. So coming in at number 4 is Connor Rosie against Richmond on Saturday night. Great matchup. We know Richmond's been a great matchup all year. I think Butters will cop the attention from a Jack Graham, so I think Rosie will be the guy that can sort of pick up a lot of the points that Butters may leave on the table. Butters could still go big, but with that tag, he won't be in the top 5, and that's why I've got Rosie there, because I think Rosie could have a good game. So he's my number 4, back at home. Last game at home, he scored a 147 against the Bulldogs, so if he could do anything like that against Richmond, that could be very, very beneficial if you have him as captain. And at number 5, to round out, I've got a bit of a pod. Toby Duncan rounds out the top 5 for me. Port Adelaide, great matchup for Rucks as well. Obviously, Jordan Sweet solo at the moment, and Nank has been on an absolute tear of late, so having some really, really good scores. Obviously, averaging 102.5 for the year, but since round 11, he's only gone under the ton on one occasion, which was a 96, but his scores since then 100, 141, 118, 96, 107, 150, 117. He's hit those ceiling scores against Freo when there was just Luke Jackson for most of the game, and Geelong, which is obviously a really good matchup. So every other game, he's been pretty solid, and when there's been an easy matchup, he normally benefits from that. So he is at my number 5, and again, he could outscore almost everyone on this list because he's got the ceiling. So, yeah, he's a really good option to round out the top 5, I think. A few of the guys that just missed out that I was pretty keen to put in was obviously Walsh and Cripper up against North Melbourne. If Will Phillips was named, that made me a little bit less confident in Walsh, but I'd be still fine with Cripper because I don't know who from North Melbourne would be able to stop Cripps. So I like both those guys. As I mentioned with Butters, a lot of people are picking him. He was the most selected sort of captain on Captain's Challenge in the top 5. I'm just worried that he'll get a tag by Jack Graham. That's why he's not there. But he could still go quite well. So if you don't think you've got the tag and you're keen on him, I couldn't talk you out of it, I don't think. Errol Goulden and then also Dunkley. Brisbane play Sydney. Tough game. It is up at the Gabba, so I'm not as confident in Errol, but we know Errol's the sort of guy that could put up a ceiling score in any given week. So for me, if you wanted to go with an Errol Goulden, again, he's one of those guys that I couldn't talk you out of. He does play on the Sunday, so he would be a captain option for you, because the other flag with this week is that there aren't actually a lot of our loop players that we use are actually playing early in the round. So a lot of the common ones are Zach Reid, who plays Friday night, Harry Barnett and Livingston play on first game on the Saturday, and then you've got some like the Hawthorn, any Hawthorn red dots, Collingwood red dots, and then if a McAuliffe doesn't get named, but I think McAuliffe will come back in for Taranto. So if a lot of those red dots are on the Friday and Saturday, if you've got a red dot on Sunday, that's fine, doesn't matter, but a lot of us have got our red dots playing early in the round, so that might be where you look at that. Zach Merritt, I think, will go quite well against the Crows. I don't see anyone tagging him. He would be pretty close to, we'd be in the top 10. Obviously mentioned Nank there, mentioned Walsh. Caldwell, I wouldn't do him this week just because of the fact that there's been, obviously, he didn't train with the main group a couple of days ago. He's under that sort of little bit of a cloud. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll play. Obviously, we'll know later tonight. By the time this video is out, just after, you'll know. And I think he'll be fine. But I wouldn't probably look at him this week. Whitford against Gold Coast, good matchup. He would probably make my top 10 as well. I like the matchup against Gold Coast, especially if Gold Coast cut off the corridor then I think Whitford get a lot of +6s there. Lachie Neale, I think he'll get tagged by James Jordan, so I wouldn't be looking at him. Sinclair could be solid. I'm just not sure about him. He plays. I think I'd rather Marshall and even a Jack Steele as a VC, but if you want to go unique, you could look at him there. I mentioned Dunkley as well with Goulden. Tough matchup against Sydney. Again, could be a captain option because he's been really solid in terms of scoring over 100 this year, but I wouldn't be looking at him as a VC, and I've probably got other options. Dacos, obviously, if Finn McGuinness is named later on, I'd be less confident, but I still think even if McGuinness isn't named, that even a Connor Nash will go to him, so I'm not looking at a Dacos this week, and a few people have even talked about trading him out. Nick Martin could be that Friday VC. He's got the ceiling, obviously went 143 last week, so you could look at him as a bit of a pod on the Friday night. I think a lot of people are going to go either a Merritt or a Jordan Dawson. Dawson could be solid, 155 against Essendon earlier this year. I expect a Caldwell or someone to run with him for most of the night. Hasn't been great away from home. So if it was at home at Adelaide Oval, I'd be a bit more confident in suggesting him as an option. But away from home, besides the Collingwood and North Melbourne games where he went over 115, he's gone 100 or less in every other away game. So I'm not as confident. But then again, Friday night, captain, prime time, you'd think he'd stand up. Houston could be a VC shout. I just don't know if I could trust him and use a VC on someone that can pop a 40 or 50. Stewart, yep, he's been in good form against the Dogs. I feel like his ceiling's capped at a 125-ish, even in this role. So I'm not sure he's a VC guy I'd be looking at. Maybe captain, but I think there are better options. Treloar, I don't think you can trust him after last week. But again, Geelong, good matchup. I do think an Atkins will run with him. So if Treloar is there, I think he could get some attention. Tristan Cherry, a solid potential captain in the last game. Easy game against Carlton if it's just De Koning. If it's Pitney and De Koning, I wouldn't really look at it as much. But if he's just against De Koning, you could look at it. Steele against West Coast, not too bad. I don't mind him as a potential VC shout. Could go big. Luke Ryan, I still don't mind. But again, he's on the Sunday. It's a good matchup. That's why I don't mind him. But you're not looking at him at all because you're not putting him captain after his form of late. And he plays the second last game, so you can't VC him. She's against Carlton, could cop a tag. So I'm not confident in him as a captain this week. Tom Green could be solid as a VC. And then the other guys here, there's no one. Nasaya, maybe, but I'm probably not looking at that, to be honest. And that's probably about it. So from those guys, if I had to do a top 10 to be the top 5, then probably at 6, I think I'd probably have. Probably Cripps, probably at 6, but just because of the matchup, I think it's a really good matchup for him. Number 7, I would have a Lachie Whitfield there against Gold Coast. I like the matchup. Number 8, barring Phillips being named, I'll put Walsh at 8. Obviously, Merritt at 8. I'll go Merritt 8 there against the Crows. Could even be number 7 ahead of Whitfield. Actually, yeah, I'll revise that. Cripps at 6, Merritt 7. I like the matchup against the Crows. Lachie Whitfield at 8. If Phillips isn't named, I would put Walsh at 9. And then probably to round at the top 10, I'll probably just go. I'd almost have to go Zach Butters just because the matchup is too good. Even with a tag, he could go quite well. But I'm not as confident as some others are this week with Butters. So, but yeah, they're my top 5. I'm going Rowan Marshall VC into Tim English. I'm liking that Marshall matchup, and I'm sort of hopeful that Marshall gets it done anyway for me, so I don't have to choose between Bont and English. As I said, if Stanley got named, I'd be less confident in English and probably go to a Bont captain if Marshall didn't do it for me. And even consider a Rosie on the Saturday night, so I might even do that as well. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys, who you guys are going with your VC and C this week. And if you've got any questions regarding your C's and VCs, put it in the comments below. And any other questions you have, put them in the comments below. And I'll get to those when I can. And if you'd also like to ask me a question on Q, then head over to AskMeOnQ, spelt QU.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. I can help you for any questions in regards to trades, captains, vice captains, draft-related questions, team-dependent questions. You can screenshot your team, type it out, send it all through, and I can answer it in depth for you. Small fee for that one there, but it does help support the channel if you'd like to do that, but also gives you an in-depth response to your question in audio format, straight to your email, so you can listen back to it as much as you want, and I go in depth with your question if you'd like to do that. So if you'd like to do that, it is at the top of the description, so you can't miss it. So I appreciate everyone that's used that so far this season. But yeah, also, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow night for our pre-lockout chat ahead of round 19, answering more of your questions. So looking forward to that. And I'll be doing a watch-along for the Crows-Bombers game. I don't normally do a watch-along for the Crows, but I'll be doing it for this Friday. So I'll be looking forward to that. Hope the Crows get a win. Yeah, so if you want to see me raging, whatever I'll be doing at the Crows game, then yeah, make sure you tune in. It'll be about, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, 5:30 Perth time when I'll be live for that watch-along, so make sure you tune to that. But then we're doing the Geelong Bulldogs watch-along on the Saturday night as well. So double header for watch-alongs this week. So if you'd like to tune to those, then yeah, make sure you get involved because it's good fun. Always good to interact with you guys there during the game. So beautiful. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Good luck in round 19, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow for the pre-lockout chat. So I'm out. Cheers.